Attention, monsters of the Midway. Ryan Poles is about to unleash chaos in the NFC. The Myles Garrett trade to the Rams has a direct consequence nobody's seeing. Byron Young, the Pro Bowler with 12 sacks, could be headed to Hollis Hall. And I'm going to explain why this move isn't just possible, but absolutely necessary for Caleb Williams to have the defense he needs to dominate. But that's not all, because while Poles makes his moves, the countdown for the Bears stadium has begun. 30 days for a decision that could change the franchise's future forever. And to wrap it up, get ready, because Pro Football Focus just dropped a list of future Bears All-Pros, led by a 22-year-old tight end who's already shaking up the league. And there's a surprise name nobody saw coming. All that and more right now. All right, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because this has more layers than the headline makes it seem. Let's build it from the ground up. Last Friday, the Cleveland Browns sent Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams. In exchange, Los Angeles gave up Jared Verse, one of the most promising young edge rushers of his generation, plus a first-round pick. That is the price the Rams paid to bring in the best defensive end in football right now. And the idea was obvious. Pair Garrett with Byron Young to create the most dangerous pass rush in the NFC heading into 2026. On paper, that is terrifying for any offense that has to face Los Angeles. But then Jeremy Fowler from ESPN reported something that changed the entire equation. According to his sources, the Rams are not going to extend any of their 2027 free agents this summer. And among the names he mentioned explicitly were Byron Young and defensive tackle Kobe Turner. That means Young, after this season, hits the open market in 2027 with zero long-term commitment to Los Angeles. And Ryan Heckman from Bear Goggles made the connection I want to develop today. If the Rams aren't going to extend Young, would they consider moving him in a trade if Chicago comes with a strong offer? First, let me tell you who Byron Young actually is with real numbers, because I think he's being underrated in the public conversation. In 2025, Young recorded 82 tackles, 12 sacks, and 29 quarterback hits. He made his first Pro Bowl. Through his first 3 NFL seasons, he has accumulated 27.5 sacks. That is elite consistency, not a one-year fluke. And what makes him especially interesting for the Bears isn't just the sacks. It's his complete defensive versatility. Young posted a Pro Football Focus run defense grade of 79.3 in 2025. For context, that is tier 1 among edge rushers in the league. Most elite pass rushers are liabilities against the run. Young is not. He can do both. And that is exactly the profile Dennis Allen needs in this defensive scheme. Now let's talk about the Bears' problem that makes this conversation urgent, because without that context, the trade seems interesting but not necessary. And it is necessary. Chicago had only 35 sacks in the entire 2025 season. 35. That is one of the lowest numbers among playoff teams that year. Montez Sweat had 11 sacks, which is a respectable number, but when the only pass rusher generating consistent pressure is one guy, opposing offensive coordinators can design their entire protection scheme specifically to eliminate him. Double teams, running back, chip blocks, tight ends staying into block, all of that simplifies when you have one threat instead of two. Austin Booker is an interesting developmental project. Dayo Odeyingbo was a free agency bet with an injury history. And late-round draft picks are not going to fix a pass rush problem in year one. The Bears, if they want to make the jump from playoff team to legitimate Super Bowl contender, need a second tier 1 edge rusher alongside Sweat. And in today's league, that type of player doesn't grow on trees in free agency. If he becomes available through a trade, especially one that comes from a contractual situation that makes the deal logical for both sides, you have to explore it. Now, the honest part, this trade has real obstacles. The first one is the most obvious. The Rams just gave up Jared Verse and a first-round pick to bring Garrett in, specifically to pair Garrett with Young. If they move Young weeks after making that deal, they are destroying the logic of the entire move. That is a decision the Rams GM Les Snead would have to explain to ownership with very strong arguments. A team that is in Super Bowl mode right now, that just paid that price for Garrett, does not move their second-best pass rusher unless the offer is impossible to turn down. The second obstacle is the cost for Chicago. If the Rams listen, the price is not going to be a third-round pick and a mid-level player. We are talking about at least one first-round pick, probably more. And the Bears have first-round picks to use if the opportunity is right, but Poles is also a GM who understands the value of those picks for continuing to build the roster long-term. He is not spending them impulsively. That said, there is a specific scenario where this trade makes sense for Los Angeles and where the Bears need to be ready to make the call. If the Rams evaluate their cap space for 2027 and 2028 and realize that extending Garrett, Young, Turner, and their offensive line simultaneously is mathematically impossible, then moving Young now, capturing draft value while he's still on his contract, is rationally the right call. The Rams are not new to this type of decision. They've done it with Cooper Kupp. They've done it with other players when the cap pushed them. This kind of move would not be a surprise coming from Snead. And if that happens, Chicago has to be in that conversation from the very first second. Think about it tactically for a moment. A defensive line with Montez Sweat and Byron Young on either side, with Gervin Dexter or Grady Jarrett inside, and with Dennis Allen designing the pressure packages, that is a pass rush that changes conference conversations. That is the kind of defense that makes playoff quarterbacks make mistakes. And with the offense Ben Johnson is building around Caleb Williams, adding that level of defensive firepower turns the Bears into the most dangerous team in the NFC. Not one of the most dangerous. The most dangerous. And for 2027, even if this trade doesn't happen this summer, Young hits free agency at 28 years old. The perfect age for a 4-year deal. The Bears already have the projected cap space to make that move. Add that Kobe Turner also hits the market in 2027, and Chicago could simultaneously solve the edge rush and the interior defensive line in the same offseason. Those are the two most urgent defensive problems the Bears have right now, potentially solved in one swing. The question Poles has to answer in the coming weeks is simple but carries enormous weight. Do we pay the trade price now and have Young for the 2026 season when we have a real Super Bowl window open? Or do we wait for free agency in 2027 and bet that nobody else signs him first? I know what I would say, and I think Poles knows too. And while the football world was processing the Garrett trade in Springfield, Illinois, another long night ended without resolution. And this one has consequences that go way beyond football. Let me break down exactly what happened this week. The Illinois Senate passed a revised version of the stadium bill in the early morning hours on Monday, a proposal that would let the Bears finance the construction, lease the building to a municipality like Arlington Heights, and in doing so avoid paying property taxes. Sounds like progress. The problem is, the Senate sent that proposal to the House of Representatives literally 1 hour before the legislative session was scheduled to end, after multiple representatives had been awake for 20 consecutive hours, and the House simply did not vote on it. They went home. Session over. Bill dead for this regular legislative calendar. And while that was happening, Hammond, Indiana, Mayor Thomas McDermott Jr. came out and confirmed he was in contact with the Indiana governor's office and state legislative leaders that same Monday morning, and said this with complete clarity. Everything is ready to go if the Bears choose Hammond. Everything. And then he added something I think is the most straight-talking statement of this entire saga. If in 30 days we don't have an answer, that is not a good sign. That is a mayor who knows he has the only complete offer on the table, and is being perfectly honest about the timeline. This week also brought Kevin Warren's name into the conversation with a frequency that cannot be ignored. Brendan Moore from Capital News Illinois said on 104.3, the score that there is a name that keeps coming up as a common denominator for why the Bears have had so many problems in the negotiations. And that name is Kevin Warren, the president of the franchise, and Senator Bill Cunningham, the legislator most committed to making this deal work, said something equally tough. Working with the Bears has been frustrating from the beginning, that they have pivoted between multiple plans, and that technically the Bears could break ground in Arlington Heights tomorrow without any special legislation, but they don't want to do that unless they get a massive tax break from Illinois. Look, I understand both sides. Asking for fiscal certainty before committing $5 billion is financially reasonable. No bank lends that money without knowing what the taxes will look like for 40 years. But the political pushback is also understandable. The real problem, the one nobody in Springfield wants to say out loud, is Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson showing up in May, and instead of facilitating the deal in Arlington Heights, reintroducing the already rejected lakefront proposal as a political condition. That is not negotiation, that is sabotage in a politician's suit. 3 options remain. Wait and absorb $10 million in additional costs for every month of delay. Accept Indiana's offer, or push for a special session that the House Speaker has already said is not in his plans. The Bears Board of Directors meets this month, 30 days. The clock is running, and Illinois still has no answer. And to close, something that has me genuinely fired up about the football this team is going to play, regardless of all the stadium noise. Pro Football Focus published their list of players who could earn their first All-Pro in 2026, and the Bears have multiple names in the conversation. Let's go through them fast, but with real substance. Colston Loveland leads the PFF list, and if you watched what he did as a rookie in 2025, that does not surprise you. His clutch gene showed up over and over in the biggest moments. With Travis Kelce in the final stage of his career and George Kittle recovering from a torn Achilles, the space for an elite tight end to position himself as the best in the conference is completely open. Loveland is 22 years old, he's improving, and Caleb Williams has him as a primary target. That combination doesn't just access the All-Pro, it claims it. Devin Bush is the most underrated name on this list. He posted a Pro Football Focus grade of 87.6 last year, the 4th best among all linebackers in the entire league, and he didn't win the All-Pro. That is an anomaly voters are going to correct if Bush repeats that level of play on a Bears defense that is motivated to bounce back. At Hollis Hall, that man arrives hungry. Caleb Williams has the hardest path purely because of competition. With only 2 quarterback slots on the All-Pro ballot, and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes all in the same conversation, Williams basically has to be the best quarterback in the league in 2026 for voters to put him above those names. Early OTA reports say he is operating at another level. Possible and probable are different things, but the conversation is real. Montez Sweat, with 11 sacks and 54 pressures, already proved he can be that guy. If he gets to 15 sacks in 2026 with Allen in his second year and Bush added to the equation, the All-Pro conversation becomes serious. Dylan Thieneman is the bold take on the list, and I like that somebody is saying it out loud. The Purdue safety fell to pick 25 for reasons nobody has fully explained, because his college film is on another level. Speed, versatility, instincts that don't look like a rookie's instincts. In a year where truly elite safeties are scarce across the league, 4 All-Pro safety slots and an electric rookie on a winning Bears team is a combination that can surprise everybody. And almost as a final note, because it deserves a mention, Stefon Diggs was linked to the Bears this week by Sports Illustrated. After the DJ Moore trade to the Bills, Chicago needs experience in their receiving group. Diggs had 85 receptions, 1,013 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns in New England in 2025. He is 33 and comes with some known locker room questions, but also with real production and the kind of veteran experience that can help Caleb Williams continue to develop. If the price is a short-term deal around $10 million, the conversation is worth having. It is not urgent. It is not BYRON Young. But it is a piece that could cost relatively little and contribute a lot in a season where the Bears are genuinely trying to get to the Super Bowl. And that is everything I have got today. And look, I know the stadium story is exhausting, but I also want you to leave this video with one thing locked in your head. The team on the field is building something real. Loveland, Williams, Sweat, Bush, Thieneman, Burden, Odunze. That is not a roster that is dreaming about the Super Bowl. That is a roster that can actually win one. And if Poles finds a way to bring BYRON Young to the Windy City, forget everything else. The history of this franchise is not written with zip codes. It is written with championships. And this team is closer to one than it has been in decades. Bear down, always. Navy and orange forever. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments. Do the Bears make the trade for BYRON Young now, or do they wait for free agency in 2027? I want to read every single answer. See you in the next one.